the first case that I cited a lot was a chap who was a writer, and when he came in to see me, I said, I've read a lot of your writings, and once, I really am one of your fans. And then he looked very sad, and as I recall, he started to weep. And I said, "Oh, what's the reason for that? What went through your mind?" He said, "Either you're a charlatan by thinking my writing was good, or you're stupid for thinking it was good, or you never read my writing." And then I realized at that point that I had missed the boat. This guy is depressed, and you've got to be real careful about what you say to depressed patients, at least at the very beginning. But anyhow, so he went on and came in therapy, and in one of the sessions, this was a subsequent session, he said that he thought he got to commit suicide because he's a total failure. And I said, "Well, in what way are you a total failure?" He said, "Well, my wife was very cross today, and it's obvious she doesn't love me, and that I just can't make it as a husband, and the kids my teenage kids were making a lot of problems, and the roof was leaking, my house is coming apart, and my business is going to pot." So I said, "Well, let's take them up one by one, looking for alternative explanations." And so I said, "Is there any explanation with why your wife was cross other than that she didn't love you anymore?" And then he thought, he said, "Well, yeah, the kids were really acting up, and I guess, now I remember she was annoyed at them." So then I said, "Well, your kids are acting up. Does that make you a bad father?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess it does." And I said, "Well, I guess all fathers in the world must be bad because all teenage kids act up." And he kind of smiled. He said, "Okay," and that. And then he said, "My house is coming apart. The roof is leaking," and so on. So I said, "Well, if your roof is leaking, does that mean that the house is coming apart?" He said, "Well, if it's not the roof, it'll be something else." So I said, "Well, what can you do about it?" And he said, "Well, I guess I could get a roofer in to take a look at it." And I say, "Is there evidence that there's anything else?" And he said, "Well, I guess not." And then I said, "What about your business? Well, what about the sales of your books?" So he said, "Well, the sales have been down a lot lately." But I said, how long has your book been out?" He says, "It's been out for 5 years. And it's just come out in paperback." So I said, "Well, is it possible that the reason people start buying the hardcover is because they're buying the paperback?" And he says, "You're right." So anyhow, now I'll tell you about
Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? So those other explanations sound so obvious to us. Why didn't he see those without your help?
Well, first of all, what I'm doing is I'm condensing just to start with because he doesn't see it right away. So I had to use a little artistry to get to that point. But the thing is, when you're depressed, when a person is depressed, they have a one-track mind. They cannot see anything outside of this little prism or lens or tunnel. They can only see straight ahead. And therefore, kind of the walls of this tunnel vision that they have preclude other information from coming in. They're not able to use their rationality, they're able to use it in reference to their dysfunctional thinking because they don't have access to it. So basically what you're doing is you're then activating the patient's own access to this type of thing. And it's not unusual for people who are functioning normally to think of alternative explanations or to think of the logical aspect of things. But when they're depressed, they simply don't. And you have to break through the wall to give them access.